Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
And now we have reached a portion of Liberty Nation Radio which we entitled Talkin' Liberty, as we welcome back a man familiar with all of you, our regular contributor, constitutional lawyer, LibertyNation.com, legal affairs editor, and the man we prefer to call our guardian of individual liberty, Scott Cosenza. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us again. Now, Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged with George Floyd's murder, which set off months of civil unrest, has been released on $1 million bail. Now, let's use this as a teachable moment to discuss not just what this means for Derek Chauvin, but about the bail process itself and the so-called bondsmen that make all of this possible.
Well, it's one and the same, Tim. The reason why this is a story and there's so much outrage, I think, is about the ignorance regarding this process. That Mr. Chauvin has been released on bail says nothing about whether or not he committed the crime of unlawfully killing Mr. Floyd. All it says is that he is likely to return to court to face those charges at trial, and that he will not be a danger to the public until that time. That's what bail is for, right? People are locked up to ensure that they're going to appear before the judge at trial. And as long as they can prove that they will do that, or evidence that they will do that, that's what it's for. On a side note, by the way, what happened to all these eliminate cash bail advocates? Yeah. They seem to be the same ones that are super animated about Mr. Chauvin's bail, which, by the way, as you said, was set at $1 million. And so typically what that would mean in most places, and I think it does mean it here, is that Mr. Chauvin or his backers, whether that's maybe a police union or even just some private individuals, would have to pay 10% of that money to a bail bondsman. That bondsman goes to the court and says, we will cover the $1 million if Mr. Chauvin flees and cannot be recovered. But the bondsman, by the way, doesn't actually have to put out a single buck unless and until he flees. That's sort of where the bond comes in. They have a bond with the court that says they've got sufficient funds on hand to cover any amount owed.
Okay, let's move on to your favorite city in the entire planet, probably the universe, Philadelphia, where the city is in league with a gun control group, and they are suing the state of Pennsylvania for more gun control.
Well, Tim, I revere the history of the city. I don't celebrate its current political leadership. Let's be clear about that.
I understand.
Yes, it's a fascinating and frustrating, and I mean, it's the politics of the city fathers, if you will, are anti-gun. They always have been vehemently anti-gun in a state that is widely pro-gun. That's kind of a peculiarity. Pennsylvania, they don't release these official numbers, but it's sort of been said that they have more NRA members than in any other state. And on a per capita basis, it's just a fantastic number of people who wish to keep and bear arms. But again, the political leadership of the city are lockstep for anti-guns. So they have sued, and they've said that the state government has been sort of derelict in not securing the safety of the people through either A, more gun controls, or B, allowing the states or the localities to enact greater gun controls. One of the things, Tim, that just drives a person like me crazy when they see this, in addition to the sort of advocating for a restriction on fundamental rights, is, the resources that it takes to marshal a suit like this. This is a serious lawsuit. It's not just a press release. And the hours that the taxpayers had to spend for the city attorneys to help file it, and the city government in league with an anti-gun organization that actively works to, take away the civil rights of Pennsylvanians. It's quite a lot going on there.
Now, up in the New York area, we have what we call the tri-state area, which was New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And we have something similar here where we live, D.C. area. It's D.C., Virginia, Maryland. Same kind of tri-state or entity configuration. And D.C. is now attempting to crack down on drivers from the surrounding areas of Maryland and Virginia. Why is that?
This is about money. And the thing that I think is important for us to talk about it for isn't that this will alleviate the citizenry of so much of their hard-earned dollars, which it will. It's the liberty impact of it. With all of these, they're going to reduce throughout the city speed limits to 20 miles an hour. Well, when the speed limit's 25 and you don't pull over until it's 32 or 34 or something like that, what's that going to do then when it's 20? In terms of how many people are going to be caught up in a law enforcement situation? One of the big impetuses behind the Black Lives Matter movement is the sort of petty offenses. They call them humbles in many jurisdictions, where police officers use the law book to denigrate people and inconvenience them and frustrate them.
Okay, Scott, finally, before we let you go, Orthodox Jews in New York City say they're being targeted by new lockdowns after Governor Andrew Cuomo came down hard on gatherings in those synagogues.
Jewish Lives Matter, Tim, has been the chant in Brooklyn, as the Hasidim are being discriminated against pretty clearly because they don't seem to have a Black Lives Matter or reason for organizing. The activities that they want to do and engage in are gather and worship, and the governor keeps throwing up these kind of like new restrictions that disallow them from doing so. The latest one is for places that have higher levels of infections, is that houses of worship are limited to 25% capacity or 10 people, whichever is fewer. And so that's massively frustrating their right to worship.
Okay, that'll do it. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Tim.
Election 2020 Big Bottom Flash Reports are coming. On election night, at the bottom of every hour, LibertyNation.com will give you Election Night 2020, 90 seconds at a time, with our Big Bottom Flash Reports. You'll get the drop with our one-stop shop. Tune into LibertyNation.com on election night for our Big Bottom Flash Reports at the bottom of every hour. LibertyNation.com.